Welcome, golf fans, pursuers of knowledge in the almighty dollar. This is your golf guru bringing you the 122nd U.S. Open at the Country Club in Brookline, Massachusetts. This is my preview show with a focus on some betting. And with that said, first and foremost, thank you for stopping by. As always, I am going to break down this course. We are going to go over a ton of custom models, all the information I have up to date to give you everything you need to know to start getting your mind thinking about who do you want to play, of course, in the Millie Maker or any DFS lineups, or probably what I've been thinking about mostly today is from a betting side, who I want to get those bets on. All right, with that said, let's go talk a little golf. First, I want to remind you about the giveaway that I've got going on for this U.S. Open. And what is it you say? I am giving away $100 to 5 different winners. And all you need to do is simply be a subscriber or subscribe now and like this video and just tell me who do you think is going to win this U.S. Open. So real quickly again, what am I doing? Giving away $100 randomly to 5 individuals that subscribe and tell me who is going to win the U.S. Open. So if you've not done that, please do so. And I think all of you that have already gave me your inputs, please only enter once if possible, because when I got to go through, I got to put all this into a random generator to get the responses. Okay, real quick, I'm going to do a recap of all the golf that went on last week. Now, as you know, I was traveling, actually, funny enough, in the Boston area, and did not go see the course. I had other things I had going on. We, of course, had a really good tournament, the Canadian Open. I got to watch probably about 75% of the tournament, so I was able to tune in thanks to the ESPN Plus app that I have. So I got to watch quite a bit of golf. And I think what was most interesting for me was what happened on Sunday in the finale round comparative to what was going on at least round 1 and round 2. I mean, there was guys that had some pretty good rounds in those, but nothing as in what we saw scoring-wise on Sunday, which typically is the toughest. Now, I know a little bit had to do to weather. It was pretty calm most of the day. You know, I think they had some rain the night before. It seemed like the greens were softer. I don't know if the pin locations were a little easier. I mean, of course, Saturday was, moving day, and there was a little bit of movement there. But yeah, it was just real interesting on how well the guys, well, not all the field, but most of the field score. I mean, especially with the last group going off with Rory and JT and Finau. I believe the worst out of those guys was Finau at 6 under. And then, of course, you had Justin Rose, which out of nowhere, the last time I remember Justin Rose having a really good, complete round of golf was, I think, the 2020 first round of the Masters. I forgot which one. I think it was in the fall, or maybe it wasn't. Maybe it doesn't matter. Neither here or there. It was, it was a pretty interesting actual Sunday ending. It was a great field, a great ending of the tournament. Of course, you had Corey Connors charge up the field. As I mentioned, you had Rose. You had Alex Smalley, who really didn't do a whole lot. I feel like he maybe shot like 1 under. And if you weren't shooting, I don't know, 4 or 5 under that day, depending where you're at, you were falling back. You had Burns that charged there for a little bit at the end. But yeah, all in all, it was, great to see Rory get a, if you want to call it a back-to-back win, or at least he defended his championship from 2019, and, JT for a bit there. I even did a little bit of live betting. Thought there was a chance that JT might be able to sneak in there, so I jumped a little bit on that, but that did not pan out. Yeah, from a betting side, not the greatest. So we'll talk real quickly here about from a DFS how I did. And then I just threw a couple other things in there. At top right, I put in there Bobby Shelton, we call. If you've been in on DFS golf for a while, he was kind of an up and comer. He lost his card, had to go back down the Corn Ferry, but a really good ball striker. Probably struggled, if I remember correctly, with the short game, the putting, but was always known as, and was kind of shocking when he lost his card. But he won the BMW Charity Open for the Corn Ferry, which it just reminded me that Mito Pereira did the same thing, and then he got bounced up into the PGA because I think they gave him 3 wins on the Corn Ferry. So it was like immediate status into the PGA. So it'll be good to see Bobby Shelton back. I played him quite a bit in Showdown. But yeah, if you guys been around for a little while doing this, of course you'll know that. And then just to touch on the live golf thing, it's kind of interesting just to see that leaderboard. We had guys like Peter Uihlein, of course, Charles Schwartzel won the event. I think he won at 9 under, and then some guys like DJ, I think shot like 1 under. And again, you got to remember that was 3 days, a 3-day tournament. But I don't know if you compare and contrast. I didn't really watch any of the Live Cup. I checked it out for like a brief hot second and just kind of saw the color coding of the teams and the coverage. Again, it was on YouTube. Yeah, I'm not trying to knock it down. I just did not really get interested. And again, with that field, how could you? But of course, they're going to have quite a few of those guys coming back. And of course, Phil Mickelson just had his presser, and that, he kind of just deflected a lot and really didn't answer a whole lot. I mean, what is he going to say? But yeah, so anyways, all said, the course, I think, played very challenging. I think it was a good opening test for these guys that are now going to go and play in the U.S. Open at Brookline. And so, yeah, I enjoyed it. The hockey hole on 16, that was awesome. The crowd kind of coming and surrounded the final group when they were coming up. Those guys, I've got a lot of family that are Canadian. I sort of wasn't too far from the Ontario border where I grew up and played quite a bit of hockey over there. And yeah, they're not afraid to have a few beers and enjoy themselves and let you know if they like you or not. So it was cool. I enjoyed it. It's been so long for the RBC Canadian Open that, hey, I think it was a great tournament to kind of show itself back up. All right. And then a perspective on, I really didn't even go through and see. I think I had 14 of 15 of my top 15. And then trying to remember, yeah, Sadoshi Kodaira, I think, was on my cheapies. He withdrew. I think he came out the second day, started shooting like crap and just pulled out. And then there was another guy that actually withdrew pre-tournament that I think I had on my cheapies. And I'm going to blank right now. But overall, my picks were okay. Again, like I said, I haven't had that, where I've got, 4 out of the 5 top finishers, it feels like, in a few tournaments. But of course I had Rory, which, I don't look at that as like, oh, that's some kind of shocking news. Corey Connors kind of struggled a little bit in the beginning, really came in on Saturday, Sunday. Chris Kirk did okay. Wyndham Clark, I actually bet him, but I don't even think I picked him as a cheapie. So I was really pulling for him. I mean, that was where, from a money perspective, that's where I would have had the nicest payout if somehow he could have managed. I did have Danny Lee in the cheapies, Shane Lowry, Fitzpatrick, Brendan Todd, ended up 8 under. Yeah, like I said, it was good to see Burns again, played really well. Like I said, the shocker for me was Justin Rose, and then it didn't show up here, but Kelly Craft shot, came out, I think it was like 6 under on the Sunday morning. So if you somehow had Rose and Kelly Craft and then just take the top 3 guys in the final group, you probably won the showdown finale for the 50K. So, and then if you're curious, what I think was most interesting was Justin Rose almost gained 9 strokes putting. He still did good ball striking, but I mean, that was what really stood out. Rory, even on the round 3, was gaining 6 strokes with a putter. My own personal thoughts was I didn't think Rory and JT could keep the putter going. Now, you saw that, Rory missed a couple, 2-3 footers there on the Sunday round, or it could have even been better. But, they both actually putted very well, and Rory's, shots from 100 in, his wedges were dialed. Even though I know on the back nine, I think he was missing quite a few fairways, but it was amazing how well, where he struggled. The 2 areas that I was worried about with Rory prior was that 125 in is where he seemed like he was missing. And then, of course, the putter, just like a Justin Thomas. And then Tony Finau, it seems like Tony does this every year. If you remember right, his last win, and only his second win on the tour, was at the FedEx, I believe in New York, there at Liberty National. And it seems like his game, if we look at his last 4 starts, has really been trending up. And you can see he gained 5 strokes with the putter. And I need to go back and do some analysis, but that's got to be one of his top putting efforts in a while, for sure, the last couple of years. So, all right, so that gives you kind of some information. You can look at that a little further if you're interested in what the guys did from a ball striking, off the tee approach, and all that. But I just want to put that up for you. But I think that's enough on the recap. We got a lot to discuss regarding the U.S. Open, so let's go there. All right, so a quick course breakdown. I already mentioned they are heading over to Brookline, Massachusetts. It is a little southwest of Boston, if you want to know where it's at. The country club is one of the oldest clubs, period. The dates at 1893 there's a few different dates. I think it was actually started as a horse racing kind of venue, if I saw that correctly. It's been designed multiple times. I think for us, what we might, if you care any, was Gil Hanse came in and did a redesign in 2013 and 2019 19. But this was a course, right? They put like 6 holes in and then added 3 holes and then added 3 holes. I mean, this thing is over, 100 plus some years have just changed. The last time we saw a U.S. Open here was in 1988. Curtis Strange won in a playoff. I'll talk a little more about that. But it is a par 70, and it's playing at 72.54, so 7,254 yards. So it's a beast of a course. There's some shorter par 4s on here that, can be challenging, but as we would expect in the U.S. Open, just like what we just saw even at the RBC, the Canadian Open, it is going to test all facets of the game. You've got a POA bent mixed fairway, and then you've got this rough. It's stating right now from the superintendent information that it's at 3 inches, but I'm guessing it's definitely going to be a lot higher than that. Even in some of the stuff I've seen, it looks taller than that, but that's what they've got it stated at. But I just take that as 4 to 5 inches. It's going to be brutal if you get in this rough. And it's got kind of a mixed blue rye POA. Of course, the ryegrass is that, real tall stuff that you can get in, like what we see at the Opens or at the U.S. Opens. And then the greens actually came across from the superintendent as POA, but then if you start to look at some other stuff, you're going to see it's a POA bent mix. So I don't know if it's a true POA. It's pretty much what I think the Canadian Open was prior. Then they ripped them out and it just put all bent greens in, but neither here or there. So I didn't really do a kind of a putting things because it doesn't look like a pure POA green. It does look like a mix from what I've seen in all the images. You do have a player field of 156 players, of course, quite a bit of those, right? Well, not quite a bit, but what is it? I think maybe 20 or the guys that just barely got in the U.S. Open, you can kind of eliminate them that, sectional qualifiers. But the cut, just like what we saw at the PGA, is T60. So it's going to be a lot harder to get your 6 of 6 through from a DFS perspective. If you want to look at the historical cut line for the U.S. Open, it's somewhere around even to 1 under. You have an outlier at 5 under. I believe that was at Aaron Hills. And then some past winning scores. You had Rahm at Torrey last year at 6 under. You had Bryson at Wingfoot. He was 6 under. You had a Woodland win at Pebble Beach at 13 under. And then you had Brooks Koepka win at Shinnecock Hills at +1. So that's kind of just a quick glance of for the past 5 years. Of course, these are smaller than average greens, about 4,300 square feet. There's a ton going on with these greens. There's slope moving somewhere on every one. Either it's pitching back to front or pitching you off the side. There are some square greens, or they're kind of, older school looking, or they're elevated. They have steep runoffs. So the greens are going to be very tricky. It's definitely going to be a defense of the course. You have 82 sand bunkers. You've got 4 water hazards and 4 holes come in play for water. But water is definitely not the defense here. It's everything else. The stem meter actually did not change that. It's going to probably run somewhere around 13. I just noticed that. And acres of fairway also I didn't put on there. But I see these fairways as it all depends where you land on these fairways. If you hit it like 275, there's quite a bit of space to put them. If you try to get them up in the 320 area, what I noticed, there's a lot of bottlenecking going on. So it definitely gets a lot tighter. I already mentioned the greens. I already mentioned the rough. Of course, there is tree-lined fairways. There's also pine trees. There's some blind shots. There's a ton of elevation. All these greens have a crazy deep sand bunkers. And there is some weather already. We're going to talk a little bit about that from a wind perspective. And of course, as I mentioned, you got some long par 4s and there's some long par 3s. That are also going to be a part of the defense. And there's just 2 long par 5s, but not that I think the guys could definitely get there in 3. There's one for sure that could be a little difficult to get it there in 2. And the Country Club is hosting this U.S. Open for the 4th time. And every time previous, it has went to a playoff, which then used to be an 18-hole playoff on Monday, which they got rid of that. And now it's just a 2-hole aggregate. And if that's still tied, then they go to a sudden death hole-by-hole playoff. And I think that's everything I wanted to cover from a course breakdown. I think that gives you a lot of information there. Now, if you want to get the best understanding of what this course is, I did this earlier, you can go to the usopen.com. There's a ton of information there. And there's one that does a flyover hole by hole and gives you information. I would highly recommend that. So I'm not going to do a bunch of the pictures and all that. I will just quickly kind of walk you through the course map real fast, but just go do that. You can see the water that does come. Nothing's really crazy. There's even I don't know if it's here. There's actually a creek to which I don't know if they counted that. Oh, maybe it's right here. It felt like it was in front of the green. It doesn't matter. There is a creek little tiny creek that runs through here. Yeah, when you to really appreciate what these guys are going to be taking on, you need to go watch this flyover because there's some blind shots, there's trees. If you're not on the right side of the fairway or the side that you need to be on for the approach. And funny enough, as I kind of follow this flyover, and maybe it's a bit because I hit a draw off the tee, that it felt like this course set up for a draw. It just kept you away from a lot of the issues. I mean, not saying every hole, but if you kind of walk through, I mean, even like 18, you can see the draw. It's like 17 is a draw. Like I said, that would be a better shot to hit in. 13, 14. I don't know. You see what you see. And I'm not saying faders are going to have any issues here. I'm just saying for me, it just looked like guys that had a natural draw might get around this course a little better. And then I don't have an official scorecard because this is not a sanctioned PGA event. Of course, it's a USGA, but I do have I mentioned the yardage already, and you can see it real quick. So, I mean, again, a real long par 4 starts you off, so definitely not a gentle handshake. You got a long par 3, another really long par 4, another long par 4. Then you've got this kind of risk reward par 4 that is, pretty well protected, but you could definitely drive it up there. You got a pretty decent length par 3. Then again, a par 4, not that you're going to probably drive it on there, but you could at least challenge it as depending, do you want to lay up or do you want to get it close and have something, 50 yards in? Then this, gettable par 5, probably the easiest hole in the course, I would guess, at 557. And then going out, you got kind of a, I don't know, standard as in yardage, par 4. And then boom, you're right back off. So you're not getting, depending if you tee off 1 or 10, you are still got another long par 4 right off the bat. Really short par 3. I'm guessing a very tricky green. I don't remember on the flyover, but you'll see that anytime they have this, it typically still plays very tough. Then a 473 par 4, 440 pretty average, and then there's that long par 5 at 619. Then you got a really long par 4, 202, 373, another, I don't want to say gettable, but at least you could drive it up there and again have a little flip wedge. Then 451. Again, with all that, what you see is just, as always on these kind of events, these majors, you just have to be an amazing ball striker and have the short game, especially with these small greens. So with that said, I always give you guys what my stroke gain analysis ranking, how I'm going to build the large model. So what does it take, do I think, to win this event? Number 1, ball striking. Funny enough, not a ton of this changed from the RBC Canadian Open. I believe approach is next, and then off the tee is going to be key. I also threw in fairways. So even though off the tee takes distance and fairways combines it, I wanted to add a little more fairways and records. I think that's going to be very important. There's a lot of things that are going to be very important to do well here. Funny enough, the putting, because these are smaller greens, even though they look pretty tricky, I don't have as high because I feel like there's so much other stuff that you have to do to even have a chance of just, getting a birdie or, just keeping your par. So again, around the green, sand saves is in there, then putting. The proximity of the pins, even though we don't have a historical, 1988, we were not pulling shot link data. So we have, no data from that event. So we have nothing from a historical side to really go on. But these are the 2 proxies of the pin. When you look at that scorecard, it's not hard to figure out that you're going to be good with the long irons. You're also going to be hitting, you're not going to be hitting all the fairways. So you're going to be chipping out a bit. You're going to have a distance in. And then I think it's kind of interesting, those very long par 4s I put in, there's 7 of those. And then always when you get to a very tough venue like this, I'm not worried about so much birdies or eagles or any of that. I'm just worried about, hey, bogey avoidance. Let's save that par one way or the other. That's the guys that are going to win this. And then the last thing I did from a historical, I wanted to pull this up just, because the one thing about U.S. Opens, typically the USGA tries to set these courses up very similar, very tough, very high rough. We all know that. And of course, not a shocker. The number 1 from a stroke gain total at the U.S. Opens over the past 5 years is our buddy Brooks Koepka. And then you got Louis Oosthuizen coming over from the Live Tour. Xander, who of course was on the cover. I like Xander a lot. I'm sure a lot of people are going to like Xander, especially at the price tag of 9,600. You got Hideki that got disqualified for painting on his 3-wood, and technically I guess cheated, but I guarantee did not cheat on purpose. And it, again, I don't see how it was actually going to affect the ball and do that much. Paul Casey's in the list here. As far as I know, Paul Casey, I would guess, is going to be a WD. I mean, everything I saw prior to this was that he was probably going to pull out for the year and, just take a medical exemption year or something to that effect. But if Paul Casey is in this field, even though we haven't seen him play competitive. I don't know. 7,700 is a very interesting price to play him. You got Patrick Reed, DJ coming over from the Live Tour. Curious to see how he's going to do. I've kind of said I feel like he's checked out since that Masters in 2020 win. You got John Brown, who struggled a little bit with the short game and putting as of late. You got Tommy Fleetwood, who's always, I feel, good in a major, especially for that price tag. You got Brian Harmon, who's also in his previous years have competed in majors. I think it was the PGA Championship where I think it was rookie Erie had a chance of winning that thing. You got Rory, JT, who both just had excellent showings at the RBC Canadian Open, and their games look amazing. Of course, you got Bryson, again, who's supposed to be playing in the Live Tour event coming up, but is dealing with that hand injury and who knows what. I mean, of course, I went to. You got Harris English, where he made an appearance. I don't think it was at the RBC. What was it now? It was the Memorial, and didn't do very well at all. He's going to need some competitive golf to get back in. And then you got Fitzpatrick, who we'll talk a little bit about here in a second. All right. So with all that said, of course, the first thing that I always look at is recent form. I can't do history. I showed you a bit of history over U.S. Opens over the past 5 years, but I can't, of course, show you historical model on this course because we just don't have it. But if you want to know recent form, here's against my model and weighting. Very heavy up front here. So ball striking at 15%, approach at 20, off the tee at 15. I got around the green up to 10. Sand saves at 5. So just around the green, I got 50% of the model. 5% on putting. You got that proximity that I think is going to be heavy, 175 to 200. Then I turned the other one down a little bit to 150 to 175. Those long par fours, fairways gain, and then bogey avoidance. You put all that in, looking at the past 12 rounds or 3 tournaments, and no filters turned on. This is who it spits out for me. Rory, number 1. You got Finau. So, of course, both been playing really good over the last few tournaments. You got M, Fitzpatrick, Lowry, JT, Burns, Xander, Mito, Scheffler, Davis, Riley, Young, Rahm, Matz, Connors. If you've been watching golf the last few tournaments, these names would make total sense to you. All right. If you want to take a bigger sample, because we have a nice sample of golf, right? We're right past the midpoint at this time. Again, same model, no filters. Tony Finau actually jumps to number 1, which that's a little shocking over the last 6 tournaments. You got Lowry, Thomas, McIlroy, Fitzy, Max Homa, who's got a few wins on the year. You got Spieth, Scheffler, Hovland. Keegan's been playing really good golf and putting. You got Mito, who had a chance to win the PGA. You got Xander, Billy Ho, who just won the Memorial. Aaron Wise was in there also competing. You got Hideki Matsuyama, who has a couple wins on the year, but it's kind of teetered a little bit. Of course, that was due to the neck injury. And then what I wanted to take a look at is just typically I pull up just a ball striking, but I actually wanted to see guys that have, ball strike the best. And if you're curious what that is, it's off the tee and approach combined. So, who's getting from off to the tee towards the green the best. And this is out of long rough, which, this is taken in, the PGA Championship at Southern Hills had high rough. I think the Arnold Palmer, the RBC Canadian Open that we just saw. So there's just some examples of tournaments that would fit in here. And again, against that model with long rough turned on, JT number 1, McIlroy, Fitzy, Lowry, Connors, Neiman. Got Luke List, who had a good showing. I believe that was at the Memorial. You got Victor Hovland, of course, also won at Torrey Pines, Luke List. You got Victor Hovland, whose game's been a little rocky for Victor Hovland. I'm talking about the ball striking game where he's usually just elite. You got Mad Max, who, of course, just won the Wells Fargo. That's another one that could fit in there. Now I'm blanking at the course. Avondale Farms. Woolsey, a great tee to green guy. Patrick Cantlay, Burns, Young, and then Harold Varner shows up. All right, so I did the same thing for around the green. Again, turn on the long rough filter on Fantasy National. And your number 1 guy, again, over 24 rounds. Fleetwood, Kisner, Gooch, who just played in the Live. I think he shot even in that tournament. Ended up, I think, top 10. You got this Ben Silverman, so write that off. Don't worry about that. Billy Horschel, who just won the Memorial. You got Sanjay Amberger, Fitzy, Young, Lucas Herbert, Merritt's, Cameron Smith, Andrew Novak, Brian, my man from Central Michigan, Stewart, and HV3. And a note on Cam Smith, I didn't pick him last week for the RBC Canadian Open, but his games actually shocked me a little bit where he's missing putts that he typically doesn't miss. And his tee to green game has been a bit off the last couple tournaments. So it's going to be a tough one to pull the trigger on him for the U.S. Open. I'll put it that way. All right, now to get to the guys who've been best on approach. I call this the Ironman slide. So you'll see here, here's the top 15 guys just purely on approach. And no shocker, yeah, Burns, Scheffler, Homa, HV3, Kevin Na, who I don't even know. I guess he's in this field because he's here, but he's coming over from the Live. Cam Smith, Lowry, Xander, Matz, Wise, Henley, Pierre, Hovland, McElroy, and Jordan Spieth. And then if you want to see the guys that are best from the proximity of the pin that I think is going to be the number one, or at least highest percent of the shots coming in, you got Siwoo, Cam, you got the Hoagie, the Na, Answer, Fleetwood, Finau, Hovland, Sadoshi, Arnas, DP World Tour player, Kitayama, Kepka, Reed, Munoz, Lowry, and Bohogue, who burned me a bit at the Memorial. So another thing I wanted to look at was who hits the ball the farthest, but also hits the fairway most of the time. And so no shocker, Ron comes up number one. You're going to see all I did was just create a little model, put driving distance at 50, put fairways at 50, and just see how that comes out. You got Keegan, makes total sense. Fitzpatrick, Cameron Young, Lowry, Hovland, Pierce, Xander, Homa, Simpson, Garcia, Morikawa, Munoz, Scheffler, and Finau. Here's the guys that typically get the most length on the tee, but also get it in the fairway. And that's over the past 6 tournaments where that data is being pulled from. All right, so I did go take a sneak peek at the weather as I'm just starting to think about from a betting side. They, while I was doing this, actually released on the Golf Channel some tee times for the early groups and the later. And right now, and again, this is so early, but if you're just curious, there could be a AM PM kind of tee time split. It's looking right now. Thursday is going to have some strong winds in the afternoon, and those winds are going to stay into the morning, and then it's going to lessen as Friday, guys go out. So the guys that are going in the afternoon. So right now, if you're curious, which this is just information I'm looking at, giving it to you guys. Here's the guys that are going out in the morning wave. Not all of them, of course, but just some of the bigger names. And against my model, you got like Rory, Homa, Spieth, Xander, Billy Ho, Matz, Rahm, Berger, Morikawa, Cantlay, Scott, and then of course James Piot playing out of Michigan State, who also just played in the Live Tour, and I think he did okay there. Funny enough, I don't remember where he ended, but I felt like I saw him in the top of the leaderboard, which showed you how good that was. But long story short, I just wanted to throw it out to you. It's something to keep an eye on. We're going to keep talking about that more as the time comes on because we saw it the players. I don't remember with the PGA. I felt like it was the same thing, right? We had a kind of a T split. So, my whole thought process when I do these, especially for the Million Maker, I build a bunch of different kind of sets of players. So what I mean by that is I'm going to go with a pure ball striking group. I'm going to go with a pure plotters and really good short game and putting group. I'm going to go with some AM PM times. Maybe even flip that around just in case. Like you just got to kind of build the different skill sets because we think we know exactly who's going to do well here, but you can make an argument on both sides of the camp right now. You could make a good argument that you need distance and hopefully you're hitting fairways. But just a really good, amazing ball striker, tee to green. And then you can make one for the Brendan Todds of the world where, hey, if you're hitting every fairway, even though you don't hit it far and you're good with the irons and you're a really good putter, you could also do well. And I mean, maybe that's what the leaderboard will look like when it's all said and done. Maybe it'll be a mix. But just to give you a heads up, I mean, I'm sure you've heard this. It's not rocket science, but when you build some of your lineups, build them to a specific skill set instead of just, random dudes that look like they fit well together. All right. So you're going to hear this a ton. I actually mentioned this, I think it was back at the Memorial. I don't remember now that Fitzpatrick and his presser, actually, they were talking to him about the U.S. Open. And of course, he won on this course back in 2013. He mentioned he has played it a couple times since, if I remember correctly. But he actually beat this Oliver Goss, but also Corey Connors ended up. That's why I pulled his name in there into the semifinals. Now, again, this is almost 10 years ago when this happened. And of course, he was 18 years old. He had his 14-year-old brother on the bag. But he does have some good feelings playing this track. And of course, I don't think it's no shocker. I think a lot of people think Fitzpatrick could do very well. Maybe not win this thing, but top 10 in this event. So I just thought I'd throw that out there for anybody that does not know or has not seen. You will hear this multiple times, I mean, from me, as just a little piece of information. All right, with all that said, let's talk about the guys that I'm looking to bet now. I always do this, emphasize that these aren't the guys that I'm like, for sure, these are the guys that I really feel like are going to win. You know, your 10 to 1s, your 5 to 1s, whatever. These are the guys that I think have opportunity that could win and have really good odds right now that I want to get money in before maybe more money starts to hit them and drops it. But they're also long shots. You know, like I said, if you've been with me for a bit, you're going to know that betting golf, now the majors is, I think, is totally different. I feel like typically we're going to get a low odds guy. When you're going to have the freak anomaly of a Phil Mickelson win the PGA or a Danny Willett win the Masters, whatever it is. But yeah, these are the guys that I'm thinking about and I already have money on. So I'm just letting you in on that. All right, first one off foremost, Max Homa, 45 to 1. The guy's been playing amazing golf. I think he's got, what, 3 wins on right now? He's got the Wells, the Fortinet, and I'm probably missing one in there that I'm totally blanking on. But also, technically, like I said, from the superintendent, they say it's POA greens. Everything I've seen, it doesn't look like a true POA, but we all know Matt on the West Coast typically does very well putting on POA, so maybe that's part of it. I just like his overall game. His short game, out of all of it around the green, is probably where he struggles. I think he's a great putter. I think he's great off the tee. I think he's great with the long irons and hybrids coming in. But it's what the chipping could have an issue. So, but anyways, I threw a bet on Homa already at 45 to 1. Maybe a little bit of a FOMO bet, but again, Cameron Young, I've been betting him every time I see a tough track come up. We know what he did, of course, at Riviera, the Genesis. He had a good showing too at the PGA, was up there, you know, either leading or, you know, but fell apart on Sunday. So neither here or there. I 50 to 1. Yep, I'm going to throw on Cameron Young. I think Will Z is at like 30 to 1 at least on DraftKings Sportsbook for me. I don't feel like that's enough odds. Just, you know, not saying he couldn't, but considering you still not won on the PGA Tour, I'm kind of holding off on that. Yeah, Patrick Reed, I told you this course for me looks like it sets up a little bit for a draw. That's Patrick Reed. He's been playing a little better already. Showed life. I think it was at the Memorial. But he's got the short game. He's got that stubborn, you know, just is going to grind it out. This looks like a grinder. Of course, it's a U.S. Open grinder kind of tour. So 100 to 1, yeah, I threw some money on Reed. And a little bit maybe of a FOMO bet too. Denny McCarthy, his ball striking has gotten better. Of course, we know he's elite with the putter. Not that that's exactly, but he's got a good all-around game. 151, I don't know. I threw it in there again, probably more of a FOMO bet. And then Substraka, 250 to 1. I liked his skill set for this course, the distance. He can get hot with the putter. Of course, he had his first win at the Honda at PGA National this year, which I don't know. I'm not saying it's a great comp, but it's a, you know, it's a low par, high yardage, very tough track. And then for my super long shot, let's talk a little bit about this guy real fast. He's 300 to 1 to win, and he's 22 to 1 to top 10. He's not won on the PGA Tour, but the guy's a ball striking machine. Had a chance to win at the Valspar. Tough track. I believe it's a par 71. Pretty similar from a par to yardage. Had a good showing at the RBC Heritage, Wells Fargo's. Maybe not as good here, but he's only, as far as I know, played in one other. He played in the U.S. Open, I believe, back in 2015. He qualified, did not make the cut. But yeah, long story short, I'm talking about Matthew Neesmith. The guy's been playing pretty good golf. I mean, his game could set up here, but he would have to get crazy hot with the putter, which he did a bit at the Valspar. That's typically where he falters. But yeah, I'm going to take a shot at that. Like I said, it's a few dollars. It's a super long shot. And that's it, man. With that said, that is my show. If you do me the honor, click that like button. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe now. Tell me who you think is going to win the U.S. Open. Get in my giveaway. I will be announcing that on Wednesday, all the winners. And follow me on Twitter when you get the chance. I do put out everything that the PGA Tour communications or anything I see that I need to get to your guys' attention. All right, I'm very excited about this U.S. Open. I'm going to keep my eyes on everything. I will come out tomorrow with my picks for you from a DFS perspective, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.